we're going to talk about bark. In this two-part video, first I'm going to show you how to apply a finish to bark. For this, I'm going to be using our Omnia Natural Wood Oil. In part 2, I'm going to show you how to remove bark. Alright guys, to get started with putting our finish on the bark. First, you're going to need a can of Omnia, color of your choosing. You're also going to need a brush to apply it, a pair of gloves to keep your hands clean, and a can opener. Lastly, you're going to want a rag to clean up any little overages with the oil. So, applying Omnia to bark is very easy. All you have to do is load up your brush and dab it in. I like to get my brush overly saturated. It makes it much easier to get inside the deep cracks and ridges. Now if you're doing this over a nice floor, you're going to want to put something over the floor to make sure you don't drop anything on your floor. You can see here I moved this moss up because I want to preserve it. Once you're done applying the oil to the edge, you'll want to use a rag to lightly pat off excess. Welcome to part 2 of our bark video. In this section, we're going to cover the removal of bark. In order to do this, you're going to need a wood chisel, a sander, I prefer a random orbit sander, and you're going to need the appropriate paper. We're going to bring this down to a finished live edge, so we're going to use 120 and 220 grit. Alright, we're going to start off with a live edge here that has very little bark. Up on the tip here it has none. Here we got some thick chunky bark. Here we have a tiny little bit of bark remnants. And we have a big other chunk of bark here. So the first thing I always do is I pull on the bark to see what comes off. I always try to preserve the live edge as good as possible. So I'm always very careful on this step. Alright, so I start with my trusty wood chisel. You want to have the tapered edge towards the wood. And this is not like, typically removing wood. The bark is very, very easy to cut through, and you don't want to take too much out. So I always start from one end, especially when the bark's on there real good. And you can see the bark will just peel away. If you look along the top here, you can see the line of color change from bark to wood. It can help you gauge how much you have to take off of this. As you can see here, wood is starting to show through. So I want to lay off the chisel at that point. And see, every time I see wood come through, I leave it be. And I'm going to be taking the rest of that off with the sander. Alright, so that was the side that had a little bit of bark. This is it for the wood chisel on this side, and we're going to finish this off with some 120 sandpaper. Alright guys, now that we've completed the rough removal of the bark, we're going to proceed with our sander to bring this down to bare wood. Pay close attention to my technique And the way that I go up and down, I make sure to preserve as much of the natural lines as possible. There you go, guys. No more bark. All right, now we're gonna sand again with 220, and I'll show you how to finish these edges as well. There you have it. So now there's a multitude of ways you can change this edge and this edge. Some people want to have them very sharp like they are right now. So it's a very direct transition. And here, very sharp once again, like a knife edge. But if you have children, or you don't want to hit your leg or your knee off of it and hurt yourself, what you'll want to do is what I do, and that is round them off. Now, these square edges here, quite often you can use a router with a round over on it, and that'll allow you to give you a perfect radius all the way down. But once again, this is a live edge. Doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to look and feel good. So I'll show you guys a really easy way to round this edge and this edge over that's easily repeatable, and you can pick off just by watching this video. Okay, so to round over that edge, what I like to do is take my sander and go back and keep it going back and forth, and then I go left to right with it, and I work my way down until I like what I feel when I run my hand over it. So I really like this already. I've done this more than once, so I already knew exactly what I was going for, but you can always do a little bit and then check with your hand. And now we'll do the bottom. To do the bottom, we'll flip it over. We'll do the same thing. So because this one was very sharp, it didn't really take a long time to bring it down. What I like to do next is I take my sandpaper off, and then I'll just hold it like this and round it off with my two thumbs, and then I just go up and down the edge. The reason why I do this is when I'm sanding with the orbital sander, I'm going back and forth, I'm creating flat spots. And just by lightly going over it like this, I break the corners of those flat spots and I make a nice round edge. Once again with the top. Seamless transition, and it feels great with my hand. That's how it's done, guys. That easy.